That movie sucked.
I kind of liked it.
Movie Night Crew Network.
Mrs. Weasley glanced at the grandfather clock in the corner. Harry liked this clock. It was completely useless if you wanted to know the time, but otherwise very informative. It had 9 golden hands, and each of them was engraved with one of the Weasley family's names. There were no numerals around the face, but descriptions of where each family member might be. Home, school, and work were there, but there was also traveling, lost, hospital, prison, and, in the position where the number 12 would be on a normal clock, mortal peril. What's up, potheads? Welcome to the Restricted Section, a show in which a bunch of nerds with potty mouths reread the Harry Potter series for the umpteenth time and discuss the way that the story and its themes have stayed with a generation into adulthood. Thank you for listening. If you haven't done the reading, don't worry, we did it for you. Here's what we're talking about today. Chapter 10, Mayhem at the Ministry. So Harry spends the last week of summer at the Weasley's house, and Mr. Weasley and Percy are constantly at work trying to deal with all of the repercussions from the ordeal at the Quidditch World Cup. Like, people are literally sending them howlers. So the kids get ready for school, and Harry finally tells Ron and Hermione about his dream and his scar hoarding. It is a very short chapter.
I legitimately have a bunch of takes that I'm going to pitch, and it's going to be a little weird. It's not like our normal way, but I think it'll work well because I've got some kind of reaching things that I thought of while reading it.
Okay. What chapter did you read?
Mayhem at the Ministry.
Okay. I believe you.
I promise
when you texted me that you had a lot of stuff to talk about, I was like, I'm pretty sure he read the wrong chapter.
No. I promise you, I got some opinions and some hot takes.
Let's do it.
Ooh.
Welcome to the Restricted Section, where every hand on Mrs. Weasley's magic clock points to bullshitting all the time. Thank you so much. I'm proud of that one.
I love that.
You should be. That's a work of art.
Zinger.
I am charmed to be joined today by my most gregarious friend, Andrew. Say hello to the listeners, Andrew.
Hello. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for asking.
Yeah.
Good.
And our special guest this week is Victoria Bray, mother of dog, friend of the pod. Say hello to the listeners, Victoria.
Greetings and salutations, Charlotte's Web.
We're so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I've been like a listener for a while, so it's weird to be here, but I'm excited.
That's the thing. All pod hosts are just pod listeners that start talking, you know?
I love it. Yes.
Start talking instead of listening. That's my secret to life.
We got tired of feeling like we were part of the conversation, actually became part of the conversation.
Right.
That's all it is.
That's how it starts. I love it.
Yes. So Victoria, can you tell us a little bit about your very hairy history?
Sure. So I got into Harry Potter probably around 4th or 5th grade. And my best friend growing up was Scottish. So her whole family was Scottish. So we would play, Hogwarts at her house. Mm-hmm. And it was very much like the environment, like, because they're, from over the pond. So it was always like they would have tea and they would have all these things for us. So to me, it was just very much like, her mom, I like to this day call her Mrs. Weasley because she's just like Molly Weasley. Every time I would come over, she's like, let me give you a hug and be like, you're not eating enough and this and that. And it was so sweet. So that's when I got into it. And then, throughout my life, especially becoming an adult, I found a lot of, I know it sounds super basic, but the quotes really helped me through some tough times. And so that's part of why I showed you earlier, but I have a Harry Potter tattoo is because there are certain quotes that I'm like, when things are getting bad, I'm like, can think about the quote and it just really means a lot to me. So
I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what Hogwarts house are you? Or do you no one has to box themselves into a house themselves in a house, but.
So I am, the first time I took the quiz, I was a Ravenclaw. And then there was a little bit of like a drama llama about that the website was randomly putting people in some houses so that it would be kind of even on Pottermore. So then I retook it like years and years later and I was a Gryffindor. So I'm like, I think part Ravenclaw, part Gryffindor, but I fully subscribe to that. I'm a Ravenclaw.
Okay, yes. We tend to attract a lot of Ravenclaws for obvious reasons.
Yes.
Literary discourse.
That's us.
I can attest to that. Victoria is one of the few people I've met that is a true, like, 3-house person.
Oh, I have a third?
You have so much Gryffindor
Puff.
and Hufflepuff in you. It's, like, it's fantastic. Like, the veracity which she will tackle things with that she's, like, hesitant to do. It's astounding. It always was fantastic to watch.
I'm gonna
So like I said, you got a lot of Gryffindor in you, whether or not you realize it.
Oh, well, and a little bit of Puff. I do love plants. I have like over 30 house plants. It's become a problem.
Whoa. And they're all alive?
They are. It was like my quarantine thing. I think I shared it in the Discord, but I made realistic potion replicas as part of my quarantine project. And then also...
Oh my god, those were incredible.
Thank you. It helps,
May I share a photograph of those on our Instagram?
Yes, absolutely. And
they're so dope.
And then houseplants, they became my thing. And then I became like rescue missions for people who were like, this plant is dying. So I would go get it and try and bring it back to life. It's so Professor Sprout a little bit.
Wow. I always claim to be big Hufflepuff energy, and like my TikTok is like Professor Sprout, but here's a confession. I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast. I'm really bad at keeping my plants alive.
An exclusive.
I too have a lot of plants, and like more than half of them are always dying at any given time, and I just move them around and like throw my hands up, and I'm like, what do you need?
I think the trick is to leave them alone. That's what most of them, because I used to overwater them and kill a bunch.
Either. I have an app that tells me how frequently to water them, and even that isn't cutting it.
Oh, then they just hate you.
Yeah, well, and they get eaten by the cats sometimes too. Anyways, there's my little Puff confession. All plants dying all the time. Yes.
Well, we will do the sacrament as it is in the Catholic religion. We will not share this confession with anyone else.
So real quick before we get started, I wanted to wish a very happy birthday to our beloved Haley. Haley's birthday was yesterday, November 2nd, and it is not too late to send her good wishes. If she tries to decline the good wishes, just send them harder, okay?
I will. Happy birthday, Haley.
Happy birthday, Haley. She'll hear this in a month. I feel like she's always behind on the podcast.
Like, gee, thanks, guys.
Also, to everyone, a very happy Native American Heritage Month, also known as American Indian Heritage Month. To celebrate, we're going to donate our November Patreon earnings to the Native American Rights Fund. And we're really excited to do that. Yeah. And
that's incredible. Yeah. Awesome.
So I have some owl mail.
Ooh.
Tina, are you about to ask me?
No.
It's
not Mutts. It's not Mutts.
I was so excited.
This one comes from James. James says, I have a theory that Barty Crouch Jr. used the Imperious Curse on Crumb to force him to end the game, the Quidditch World Cup, early to ensure that everyone would be at the campsite when the attack occurred. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense that Crumb would have done that because, as we mentioned, he would know it wouldn't win the game, and the Irish Seeker would have crashed in that moment anyway if he had fainted again. Feinted again. So what do we think of that?
I see the reasoning behind it. However, I don't think that was it, because what are really his alliances?
I like the idea of it because I like any fun theory that you can like kind of play around with. But the way that I see it is Crumb knew that his chaser squad was not good enough to make up that gap. Right? So like he knew that even if he gave it time, they weren't going to catch up. So he had the opportunity to catch it then and minimize the loss versus trying to like wait on a miracle, you know?
I really don't buy that because they would have only had to score 2 goals. And even for like a poorly performing team, you can fluke into 2 goals. Like that's what it would have taken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For them to win the game. So I think I said this before. I would have waited until at least like an hour had passed. Like it really is like not that far into the game.
Yeah. The other thing about the theory, and James, I love that you sent it. I'm not trying to be like I'm not trying to dissuade or.
You got it. Just do it.
Yeah. Anyways, but the other part about it is that one of the reasons I think that it has a lot to do with Crumb knowing the situation and just kind of, going for it when he could, even though it means that they lost, is the way that it shows Fred and George's knowledge, because Fred and George are these characters that for a very long time in these books, you kind of think of just the jokesters. You don't realize that they're highly intelligent people. And they made that bet for a reason, because they know that, Crumb is going to catch that snitch, but that Ireland's going to win. And if Fred and George know that, now mind you, they're very knowledgeable and very smart, but if they're able to make that deduction, Crumb definitely made that deduction. And so he knew that, like I said, I think it was obvious how it was going to end, so it might as well end quicker rather than stretching it out and torturing yourself.
What do you think, Victoria?
Maybe the motherfucker was just tired.
He's like, I didn't even want to be in this stupid game.
It's like, I pre-gamed. I'm tired. Let's just catch the little sparkly thing. Let's go. But that's actually like a really interesting question, because I have read the series multiple times, but I've never really thought about that specific angle of it. And it does make sense. I've always just kind of subscribed to like, oh yeah, he caught it and it was over. And I never really thought about the why. So that's a really cool like reader question. Yeah. Or listener question.
Yes. Probably a reader too.
Both.
James, thank you so much for that question. Let's get on to the show.
Woo!
So it starts pretty grimly. No one gets any sleep after the traumatic, like, Nazi riot.
Yeah.
Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Pretty scary stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably wouldn't be able to sleep either.
God, no.
You mean you wouldn't be able to sleep after experiencing a massive terrorism attack where a foreign power that used to, completely terrorize the entire country that you're in decides to raise their head on an international event level? That you don't think you just sleep fine after that?
No, I don't. So they don't sleep. They just go home for like first thing in the morning. They pass by Mr. Roberts, the campsite owner, who wishes them a Merry Christmas.
Yeah. This is... I'm gonna warn listeners now. I have a few things that really kind of hit me a weird way this read-through of this chapter, and this is the first one. One of the things that bitch does a lot, and I mean a lot, is try to make comedy out of things that, like, when you first read them are like lighthearted and funny, like, haha, he thinks it's Christmas. But like, that dude's life could be messed up. Like we saw what happened to wow, I'm vapor locking. Lockhart, these charms are not foolproof. And it's disturbing how like lighthearted and not like just ha ha ha, yeah, he thinks it's Christmas. Like, do you really think a wizard's gonna stick around and make sure that he like snaps out of it?
Hard no. There's definitely a lot of things in this whole book series that, like, reading them so slowly as we've been doing, you have time to be like, wait, hold the fucking phone. What did you just say?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think too, I know we know that Lockhart ends up in St. Mungo's, so I think like, to think that this could be a potential case similar where he doesn't know where he is and this and that, and as someone who works in like mental health, and I've like worked in hospitals and stuff like that, where it's just like, some people do laugh at those things and you're kind of like, no, this person is sick, or like this person's not well. And in this case, we don't know if it's going to be like a little charm that's going to wear off quickly, or if this is going to be him for like the rest of his life. So
yeah. And it is so wild, the cavalier attitude that the wizarding community takes to doing like brain stuff, because like, I think this is actually the only spell that's not illegal. Like what the fuck are they called?
Unforgivable curses.
My brain was like the forbidden curses.
Oh, it's like a synonym. I get it.
Yeah. But, it's just really wild that they're like, it's cool, I'll just rewire their brain and it'll be fine. And it's like, how does this not just like topple everything? Like, how are you guys fucking each other's brains up all the time?
I really thought you said fucking each other's brains out, and I was like, what? What edition are you reading? Because that sounds like a good one.
Wizards, they be fucking.
That sounds like some bonus episode content. We'll find us some
erotic fan fiction or something.
Erotic fan fiction, but it would have to be of like the parents because you can't.
Yeah, no, not the kids.
I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Nope.
I did think of something interesting with this. So
okay,
we know
just the one interesting thing.
Well, with this specifically, yeah.
Okay.
So we know that Ludo Bagman's in charge of like setting up this entire event, essentially, right? He's the director of magical sports. Like, this is his thing. If we already know that this poor campsite monitor person is in this state, and we know that Ludo Bagman apparently has bad gambling debts because he tries to pay Fred and George with leprechaun gold. And it seems like from everything we hear, he's like skipping out all over town. I think that comes later on. They go into more detail about that, trying to like avoid debts and stuff. Yeah. What are the chances that he just took all the money from everyone who got a campsite and pocketed it and just made the guy completely forget that anyone was ever there?
That would be like a mad scheme he's got going on.
Whoa. And honestly, like, Ludo Bagman is not, like, evil, but he is shitty. And so, like, that's, like, the shitty kind of thing that someone would do and be like, he's literally no different than before we got here. You know, like, I've changed nothing.
He's like a Mundungus Fletcher type, where they're, like, not necessarily bad, they're just, like, sketch.
Shiesty, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sus, as the kids would say.
Yes.
As the youth would put it.
Hella sus.
Hella sus. The gang, the Weasleys and Harry and Hermione, they get a port key and they dip out.
Not just that, they jump the line.
They get a port key. The language is actually ambiguous because it says that there's a long queue and then they, Arthur talked to somebody and then they waited and then they got a port key. So the line could have been going very quickly. They're just trying to get people out of there.
I think at this point, it's one of the like very subtle ways that we're shown that the government is like protective of Harry.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Just get him out of here.
Exactly. I think he kind of went up and was like, "Hey, Dark Mark literally just went up last night. I got the Potter kid. Like, let's, you know."
I'm surprised they didn't try to send him home the night before, honestly.
I thought about that, and I think it's probably one of those situations where with everything going on and with Arthur being one of the few ministry, well, I say few, but one of the, you know, a department lead, like a higher ranking ministry officials there. Yeah.
A middle manager.
Yes, the middle managers make all government work. They're very important people. And I think that's kind of what it is. He was like, okay, do this, do that, do this, do that. And then it probably hit him like, oh shit, I got Harry. Like, yeah.
Something I do think about too is like, what is the Ministry of Magic's relationship or like thoughts on Harry? Because of course they know like he but he survived Voldemort and such, but they don't seem to really go out of their way to protect him. So like, what are their thoughts? Like, do they want him or like, is he, you know, there's parts where with Fudge and stuff, I guess they do protect him with in the third with when he does the magic and they're like, no, it's fine. But just in general, they never seem to really use him unless Dumbledore's in with them and is trying to do that.
Right. I think they like protect him to the extent that the Ministry of Magic is capable of like executing anything in any kind of real way. Like when he fucks up when something happens, they're like, oh shit, figure it out. But I think that they never do anything preventatively.
Yeah, it's like a hands-off approach, we'll say.
And I think that's the right word choice too, because I think it's intentional. You know, at this point, Fudge still is kind of portrayed as like a bumbling politician that's not very effective at what he does.
Right.
Later on,
I know one of those.
Yeah. Later on, though, we do see him kind of consolidate his power and show that he really is one of those people that wants to stay in power and is pretty capable of doing it. Like he's actually pretty good at holding it until he, you know, it gets overthrown in a coup. But where I'm going with this is I think that what's going on is that when Dumbledore said, I'm going to protect Harry, Fudge thought perfect. Because first of all, if something happens to him, the greatest wizard in our world was looking after him and claimed security. In fact, it's probably better I don't even know of the security so that, I have complete ability to just wash my hands, right?
Not a conflict of interest.
Exactly. And then on top of that, Fudge knows even at this point that Harry is he's a very volatile weapon. Because while he's very good for press, and while if Harry thinks that things are going well and you can get him smiling in a picture, that's a great thing. Harry is in a unique position as a child. I mean, he's still a child at this point. He has power and sway. Now, not power in the way of like actual government happenings, but as we see later on, there are people that really believe in him, and he is a hero to so many people. And especially at this point, before Rita Skeeter has done what she will do to like really go against him, he really is kind of like an ultimate paragon, right? Like, this is the kid that beat Voldemort. Like,
he's a symbol, I think.
Yes. He's a very big symbol of basically like the success. Like, Voldemort's gone, but like anything else, when you have people with power like that, it's a threat. I mean, that's why right now China's doing this thing where they're basically cutting off all of these K-pop idols, and they're not allowing them to like perform, and they're cutting out their social media and stuff. And the reason is because
there we go.
Well, it's serious. This is serious. Like, they think they have too much influence, and the government doesn't like individuals having that much influence, because individuals can have dissenting opinions.
It does make sense, though.
Mrs. Weasley is incredibly relieved.
That was just a good example, okay? The point stands even if I used K-pop. Like,
Mrs. Weasley is incredibly relieved to see them appear on the hilltop. And she hugs Fred and George in particular because she regrets their argument.
I always love that scene.
I know.
It really, that bitch is awful in very many ways, but one of the things that she is incredibly good at is writing like a true maternal love that just, like the first thought is, what if you had died when I had said, when we had an argument like that, that's just beautiful. It always really hits me.
It's also really hard to, knowing what we know, to look back and like read this scene is like, because that she was like, oh boys, like both of you are okay. What would I do if like either one of you died? And it's like, oh no, she doesn't.
Wow, that is a forbidden subject.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
That wasn't in the contract.
I can't go there mentally.
Oh, I know.
Hermione makes Molly Weasley a strong cup of tea, and Mr. Weasley puts a shot of fire whiskey in it, which I respect that.
It's a good move. It's a strong move.
Andrew, you're a fireball man, right? So that's you.
Absolutely.
It's a hot toddy. It's my favorite kind of drink, a freaking hot toddy in the fall or the winter. Delicious.
So good.
Yeah. Or a cold toddy in the summer or spring. Don't let the fun stop.
Wouldn't that just be watered down spiced whiskey?
Who are you to judge me, Andrew?
I'm not judging. I'm just confused. Deeply, deeply confused.
So the Daily Prophet has reported, making it seem like the ministry like really fucked up the whole situation, which they kind of did. But then also the press, makes it feel like more
relatable to current times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is one of my big first reaches. Okay, because I got something to say about this.
Okay.
Rowling did a great job on the surface of describing the power that the press has, and especially a misaligned gossip press, right? Like a press that's just about the headlines and trying to get clicks. And I'm sure that what she thought she was writing, even, when this came out, was the rise of what we now know as like buzz journalism, or like essentially like fake news, right? Like try and lie, but in a way that it's either not going to be seen or is going to be kind of truthful. Put speculation in there, so just say according to sources. And the point that she's trying to make is a very good one, because you do have to be critical of any news, any journalism that you take in. The horrible, horrible irony in this, though, is that is exactly what she has done in the modern day as far as being a TERF. She is spreading misinformation. She is basically bashing and lying about people that she doesn't even know. and trying to use this sway to, in her mind, like, better the public. But in reality, it is the same exact thing. It's lying and misleading and manipulating.
It's a misuse of a platform.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Right. We don't need to spend too much time talking about how she's shitty. But that was a very good a connection to pull, Andrew. So I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. I know, like I said, I know it's kind of a deep reach, but
no, but it's just funny. You became what you hate.
I think that's what she always was, though. Like, I think she's one of those people who truly thinks that she's, like, a good person.
Right.
Like, I think she really honestly thinks that. And, like, there's a few other moments that we'll get to in this chapter that really stuck out to me. Like, no, you've always been an awful person. We just didn't read it. Like, we didn't understand it. And I really, like, I don't think these books would be successful if they came out in this decade.
Right. Because books are held to a higher standard today, I think.
Much higher standard. And for good reason.
Just like ethically.
Which is good, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of ethically, we also get introduced to Rita Skeeter in this because she wrote the shitty article. She'll probably never come up again later.
I have a deep love for Rita Skeeter in a very weird way. Like, she's not love of anything about the character, but she might be my favorite idea for a character, because something about this, like, she's not like a human. She's like a force. She's like a hurricane. She just comes in and fucks shit up and then leaves. And everyone's just left looking around like, what the hell was that? And it's kind of like, I've always had a fascination with journalism. And that's one of the reasons that like I said, I've always loved Rita Skeeter, not loved her for who she is, but like the idea of, like, this incredible journalist that just is awful, right? And then, of course, the irony is that's what ended up happening in the real world. But, like, when reading it as a kid, I was just like, oh, fuck her, you know? And everything that she does. And I don't know, I have a love-hate relationship with the character.
Yeah. She's an interesting character, but she's an unlikable person.
Yeah, that might be the better way to say it. I don't love her. I think she's one of the most interesting, like, secondary characters.
Yeah, I agree.
I think she's like the epitome of the saying, she's a piece of work. Like, she's the perfect, like, sample for that statement.
Yeah.
It's a very polite way to put it.
Yeah. I would like to personally own a quick quotes quill, and here's what I would do is I would set it up and then I would be like, quill, I have a book idea. They're in the woods. I don't know why, but there's a monster and there's no sun. They're on another planet where there's no sun. And the quill would just be like, okay, cool, and start writing my novel for me.
Just fills it in all the details.
Yes.
So it's like Siri, but she listens.
Yes, that's my dream.
Love
somebody, that. Basically what I'm saying is somebody write my book for me. That would be so helpful.
Ghostwriter.
So Arthur has to go into the office to help smooth things over. He hasn't slept. If I were Molly, I would be like, you haven't slept. You can't let work do this to you. But c'est la vie. I guess he's a public servant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's also... Arthur is symbolic of that old, like, post-World War II, like, identity of Britain, right? Like, he's this guy who's, like, going to get it done, and it's for the good, and, like, I'm here for the country. This is my duty. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to go in. They need help.
Yeah.
Right? And I always, like, one of the things I love about him is that he genuinely looks at what he does as being good. And he thinks that, like, he needs to do what he can.
He feels a sense of duty.
Yes.
Yeah. Percy, speaking of duty, volunteers to go with Arthur to help. And I can hand Fudge my cauldron bottom jeans. Cauldron bottom report.
Boots with the... So that takes me to my first Post-it, which in the book where he says, Mr. Crouch will need all hands on deck, and I can give him my cauldron report in person. One, that cannot be that important. And two, what a fucking boring piece of shit it would be to work with Percy. Like, imagine if you were his coworker. Oh my God.
I'm imagining being Fudge, and this is the worst morning of my life, and some terrible shit just happened, and I'm trying to manage it. Everyone's calling me. Like, everyone's blowing me the fuck up. And then Percy fucking Weasley comes and hands me paper. I'm like in the middle of an anxiety attack. He hands me just straight up paper and is like, this is about the cauldron bottoms.
Like, no one gives a fuck Percy right now.
Percy's literal job is to be the person that takes things that people try to hand to Fudge and does something different with them.
Right? And if you go up like a paragraph in the article, it literally said rumors that several bodies were removed from the woods. That's more important than the cauldron reports, sir. Like, nobody gives a fuck. God, what a boring man.
So I'm guessing from y'all's reactions there, you've never actually worked with a real Percy? Because I have.
I am not a very tolerant person for this kind of bullshit. Like, I can't abide this kind of bullshit.
I've worked with like a similar, so I'd say like a Percy once removed type situation that I've worked with. And I couldn't handle that. It was stupid.
When I was at my last job working at the gym, I had a moment where one of our members started having a low blood sugar episode, like a diabetic person that was on a treadmill and started, feeling lightheaded, fell down, got booted by the treadmill across the floor. Like, we were, basically doing recovery until EMS got there, giving it Gatorade and stuff. Okay. And as we're doing this, my front desk person walks up and goes, "Hey, are you busy?"
A little.
And I was mad enough that I was like, no, not at all. I was just like super sarcastic, and they didn't even realize it. They just plowed on. They're like, okay, this person's on the phone and like they're mad about this late fee. And I was wondering like what I should do about that. And I just like, at some point it registered that the look that I was giving them was literally one of like, I'm going to kill your ancestors to prevent you from asking me this question. And they just like turn around, but I'll never forget, like, I'm literally with a person who we're waiting for the ambulance and they're like, yeah, so a late fee, like it's work. Right. So like, this is equally important. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's what I thought of when I was reading about my cauldron thickness report. That's what he needs after a global terror attack.
That is a very similar situation.
Yeah. Equal importance.
I think you're just too like kind of a person that like your kind eyes like cut through whatever the rest of your face is doing. So they were like, he's fine. Okay.
Wow. That's something about me also. Part of me not being very tolerant of these kind of personalities is that my face doesn't lie. Like, I can't.
Is it like a resting bitch face situation or like it's there?
No, it's just like, you'll know when you're bothering me. You'll know right away. Arthur, I already read that line. Harry asks Molly if Hedwig has brought him a letter, which she has not arrived from her travels yet. And then Ron, Hermione, and Harry go up to Ron's room for a little board meeting.
Mm-hmm. Giggity.
to speak about this. Harry confesses that his scar hurt him. I keep being like really scathingly sarcastic about it, but it is the first time that his scar has like hurt him proper, I think, in like a random way.
I think so too, but it's funny because that's how I read it too. He's like, my scar was hurting again. Like, oh no, it's like my back hurts every day, but I only complain about it most of the time. But no, so I got that too. And then as it goes on, they're kind of like the reason he didn't tell them, where they're like, oh my God, like this and that, like, and it says like Ron was dumbstruck because it's Ron. But so like I get why he didn't tell them because they don't seem to be best listeners in this situation. That they're right. Like I get their concerns, but
one's an overreactor and the other one's an underreactor.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Harry does remind us about Professor Trelawney's prediction. Don't forget, the Dark Lord will rise greater and more powerful than ever before. Don't even worry about it. I was just taking a little nappy.
Also, what bothers me is that there's like, it's a little bit more in Order of the Phoenix, but that there's no talk in the movies at all about how like Neville basically could have been like the chosen one and everything, which
he's the other chosen one.
The other, yeah. Well,
the unchosen one.
The unchosen one.
That's like on your business card. Imagine just like I'm Neville Longbottom, the unchosen one. Be so sad, but
no, you're right. I think at this point the only person who knows that is Dumbledore. because he's the only one who knows the prophecy in full, and he's also the only one who knows the full situation of the parentage and all that. And, you know, it's really funny because we think of Neville as not being the chosen one, so he doesn't have this, you know, hard destiny. But I would argue that, like, in a way, Neville has a way worse life than Harry.
Yeah.
Even with Harry being constantly thrust into these dangerous situations, like, he does make it out of them. And, like, he always has more friendship afterwards. And, you know, people give him house points and shit. And Neville, like, just constantly gets mocked and has no confidence because he grew up with his grandma who berated
his
him.
life sucks. He, like, hates himself.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
I also, this is probably, like, a real fucked up opinion, but I don't know if it would be worse to have your parents dead versus them kind of the way they're sick in the hospital. Like, that must be so much harder because you see them and they're alive, but, like, they...
At what cost?
Yeah, like, that would be so hard. Like, just, like, they can't really remember and they can't really speak and, like, this and that. And that just, to me, seems like it would be a lot harder as a child versus having them had passed away.
Yeah.
Well, and especially, like, if you ever had a relative that, like, a close relative, like a parent or a grandparent or someone who has had Alzheimer's or dementia, when it's someone that you love that much and they don't remember your name, it crushes you.
Yeah,
it absolutely crushes you. And I got to say, in my opinion, it's an easy choice. I would rather have the fond memories that I did of, like, my parents or anyone than have to keep going and seeing them in that state.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, what about the Notebook? Anyway, let's move on from this bummer conversation.
I know.
Here, a distraction. Let's go play Quidditch.
Which, once again, that bitch shows her hand right here, right? Because Hermione says, Ron, Harry doesn't want to play Quidditch right now. And Harry goes, no, I want to play Quidditch. And it's so innocent seeming, but Hermione's response is, boys.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, he wants a distraction.
Yeah.
Like, that's not it happens to be a sport, and I guess in her mind, like, sports are boys' things, but, like...
She's also just, like, bossy, and she's like, when they don't do what she wants, it's like, ugh.
Oh.
Well, I'm thinking more of, like, Rowling speaking through Hermione here. Because, like, in her mind, like, that's a boy thing. And there are boy things and there are girl things, and it's a boy thing. And it's like, fuck you. Like, just fuck. Like,
obviously, like, that's not ultimately the message of the series because, like, Ginny becomes a very badass Quidditch player, but it is that kind of, like, casual language that is like that people overlook a lot of the time.
I was going to say, just to play devil's advocate to you, Andrew, is like, she's also like 14 in this, so she might not have the emotional intelligence to be able to be like, he needs a distraction because he's feeling this. And
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, also, she just wants to, like, resolve it. And they're like, well, let's ignore it. So, Hermione's just... She's like, what's the main thing that's different between me and them besides the fact that they disagree with me?
Let's say, I'm like her now. I'm like, men. She's boys. Some things never change.
So, la-di-da. The rest of the week goes on. Mr. Weasley and Percy are very absent. People are sending the Ministry of Magic howlers, among other things.
I wish we had that option to send our elected officials letters that would explode in flame and scream at them if they don't answer them. That would be fantastic.
What power. That's power to the people right there.
That is.
Let me scream in his face.
Right? Oh my God. This letter just yelled at me.
I got a letter. It was a terrific letter. One of the best letters you ever heard.
It was small and red, just like me.
Burned with fiery passion. I didn't listen to what it said. I figured it was going along with whatever I agreed with.
That sounds about right.
A lot of people are asking to be reimbursed for their damaged or lost or ruined possessions, including Mundungus Fletcher. I think that's the first time we hear his name. He pops up more later. And he claims to have lost a massive tent with a jacuzzi.
That would be me, straight up. Be like a wine cooler and a jacuzzi. Thank you.
This is literally my job. So my job right now is I work for a law firm doing class action claims. So people that were in events like this that have major, things happen and need to be compensated. That's literally what I do. And so I was reading, I was like, son of a bitch. Oh my God. Because literally, like, I've gotten shit like that. Like people who say like, yeah, and I happen to have $100,000 cash and my collection of Rolexes and that safe that was stolen. Really? But no proof of ownership? No, like literally all day. That's what I see. It's so funny.
Damn, that's
For it to come up here, I was like, hey, it's like I'm working. Oh.
Goodness.
During this little montage, we also get introduced to the Weasley clock.
I had a little post-it for that actually.
Aww.
Because that's one of my favorite like magical inventions. A couple of things about it is, one, I think it's just so sweet that like with your family, you could say like, okay, I know where they are. They're safe, this and that. But also how horrible it would be if I was dating someone who was on the clock, because I'd be like, where the fuck are they? Oh, they're at the Leaky Cauldron doing what? It's 11:50 at night.
Why were you in mortal peril without me?
We said we would do that together.
I would love to have one of these for Sean, because he definitely just forgets to answer my text for like half a day sometimes. And I'm like, are you at work? Like, are you doing a movie thing? Like, where are you at, bud?
Mortal peril, like we said.
Mortal peril again.
Well, he's in mortal peril. He just doesn't know it yet.
He's in mortal peril because he's away from her.
Yeah. Do y'all think that this is supposed to be kind of an analogy to the Cold War Doomsday Clock?
I don't know what that is.
What?
So, this is very well known. There was a team of I think it was journalists and political science experts back in the Cold War that created what they called the Doomsday Clock. And it's basically how close are we to a hot war with Russia? And so like, you'll hear, like the expression like minutes to midnight, like how close we are to something that comes from the Doomsday Clock. Cause like it started off at something like 11 o'clock. And then as things progressed and like you get through like the Korean War and the Vietnam War and hostilities like are becoming more and more tense, it got up to like minutes to midnight. So it got to the point that it was like 10 minutes to midnight. And then I think the closest it ever got was like 7 or 5 or something like that. But basically it was like a very well-known,
like a
tool.
metaphor.
Yeah, kind of like it's like with the terror code, like red, orange, blue, like it's kind of like that, but way more easy to understand because everyone knows like when you're getting close to midnight. So it was a tool that they used to disseminate that information.
Interesting.
So I'm wondering if that's kind of where she got the inspiration for this, the idea of, because as we go on, one of the big like moments in future books is when she makes Molly makes the casual comment about, oh, it's always like that these days, and everyone's hand is on mortal peril. Mm-hmm. So that would be like when things are about to hit the fan. So that's why it made me think, I wonder if that was supposed to be kind of an allusion to that.
Yeah, I like that.
Like I said, I'm reaching. I got theories and hot takes. I'm reaching.
You've got long arms, so that's why you reach so well.
So it's the night before they all leave for Hogwarts. Mr. Weasley comes home sweepy. Apparently, Rita Skeeter has finally found out about Bertha Jorkins being missing.
Yeah.
Which, that's probably for the best, because then the people at home can help with the situation. Armchair detectives.
Yeah, and it's a really clever thing to have it be that way, because in this situation, she's actually doing good, right? Like, it's good to show these bad things that the government is doing, like trying to cover up the disappearance of an official.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's just proof that like, I truly don't think that Rita is an evil person. I think she just doesn't give a fuck. It's all about
chaotic, neutral.
Yeah, it's all about give me, readership and my clout. And if the way to do that in one day is to do a huge expose on government corruption, she's going to do it. If the next day it's to say that, this person is having an affair, she'll do that. It doesn't matter. It's just purely for like the clout.
We know you have a heart on for Rita. Okay, we get it.
It's the glasses.
Every time you see a beetle, you're like,
oh my God.
Oh my.
A beetle. Is it a dung beetle?
The shittiest beetle.
Please go.
The old face palm.
Well, I'll be logging off.
So happy you were here, Andrew. So I will say, and I will fully say I didn't listen to last week's episode, so I don't know if you touched on this, but I have had a personal vendetta about the Winky situation since I was a child.
Yeah.
Where is she? Is she okay?
She's definitely not okay.
I mean, same, but I just like, I know later on she develops a drinking problem and like I worry about her, but it does bring me up to like, one, we love Hermione and the SPEW, but the whole thing I don't super understand is when they do like the slave thing where it's like they don't pay her obviously, and then she's like very against being set free, whereas Dobby was like, bitch, yes, please. So is the fear that they won't have like a stable home and stuff if they're set free?
I don't know, man. It's like
it's not fully covered. That's why I'm like,
I feel like Winky is being like forcibly evicted from the Crouch household right now. I feel like Barty Crouch is having to like really get into it with her, and then I feel like he has to be the one to go to Dumbledore and be like, dude, I need you to take this fucking house elf off my hands. This is a nightmare. You have other house elves to take. Give them this house elf, please.
It's like at a club when like drunk girls are like passing on the super drunk friend to the other ones. They're like, it's my turn to dance. Take her.
Yeah.
Like house elves in general are a really interesting, in a kind of bad way, item or tool thing in this series, because they're always treated as like with the way that wizards talk about house elves is the same way that like slave owners talked about slaves back in the day. It's better for them. They want to do it. They would be lost without it. Like it's what they're made to do. They're meant to be subservient. It's all this gross shit. But the really fucked up thing is that J.K. Rowling took that and then made it real. And once again, it's something that like you don't notice when you're a kid, but it's really fucked up because she uses the same exact arguments that like they're better off this way. They like it like that. They wouldn't know what to do. It's just fucked up.
It's very fucked up. I think we've said before that she like takes on an issue that she's not prepared to talk about, but she like kind of doesn't even take it on. She, as always, is just kind of like blustering into things and then being like, actually, fuck it. That sounds like a lot of work. And then like blustering back out again.
It's like she goes to make a point and like you said, just like, oh, that would be hard.
Yeah, just like, I'm just going to leave this here. Interpret it yourself.
I'm definitely not going to rewrite that either.
Well, I was also going to say, maybe don't put that in a children's book.
Right. Yeah.
But,
for sure.
But like the one semi-redeeming thing about it is that makes like Dobby is one of my favorite characters. So I think that also to me is what's also really great about him is that he, you know, for lack of a better term, like gets out, and that like he's so excited to have his new life, and like later on we see him with like his little socks and his trainers, and he's like living his best life, and like I love that. But it is a bit of a commentary of that he's so excited to do those things, and all of the other elves are like, no, we can't do that. And
right.
You bring up a good point, especially because like Dobby could have been an even greater character if she had dug more into that, right? Like if she had taken the challenge to show him as a beacon to other house elves to like wake them up, right? Like if that had been Dobby's role, if instead of just being the hero that he was, he had also tried to actively, and like we see him kind of try, but everyone shuns him. Because like that would be a really cool like addition to his arc if he had started the movement to like, you know, get this slave class to basically realize like, fuck this, you know?
It seems that they're so scared that they don't want to, or like that's the worst thing to do is to leave. It, again, is kind of the same social commentary about the slaves you're talking about.
I just can't help but think that she started off with the intent to tackle something big like that, and then like just decided midway through like, yeah, oh fuck this, nah.
Yeah, so Percy and Hermione kind of get into an argument about Winky again, and it's funny and awkward because they're usually both really polite and you know, proper.
I was gonna say, stepping into one of my favorite visuals is Ron receiving the beautiful dress robes.
Yes. It's Mrs. Weasley did the shopping while they were at the Quidditch World Cup. So yes, Ron receives his frilly ass dress robes.
with a moldy looking lace frill at the collar and matching lace cups.
Gross.
My thing is like, so it sounds like she thrifted them in whatever the Wizarding World version of that is. Did they not have anything that wasn't that? Like, I don't know, but in the movie adaptation, I think it's also like they do a great job. I know the delivery of the dress robes is different because it comes as like an owl delivery in the movies, but I do just love the way in both that he's like, I'm not wearing this. It's gross. It smells like an old woman.
Here's the thing. Why not just wear your fucking everyday outfit, which looks exactly the same? Like, the dress robes are they're just robes. At least in the film, you know, it's like, it's just robes. Just wear your normal everyday. It's black, dude. You'll be fine.
Also, like, there isn't some kind of like magic you can do on it, like incus blackus or something to make it like not maroon. Like,
yeah, interesting.
Something.
Yeah, maroon's not the color.
It's not the look.
Not for him. Not for his rosacea tinted face. That's not the way to go.
I have dated a ginger before, and I had to teach him that he really shouldn't be wearing orange, red, or hot pink.
Hot
pink.
So, yeah, Mrs. Weasley comes in, and Ron's like, you fucked up, give me Ginny's dress, and Mrs. Weasley's like, nah, dude, that's all you.
That's for you, my dude.
Yeah, Harry gets some sexy green robes.
Yeah, to match his eyes.
Yeah.
Do you realize what amazingness we missed out on?
What?
Please let us
know.
know.
It makes the comment that Molly got him, I think they say bottle green robes to match his eyes, which means that if they had stuck with that in the movie, we would have seen Harry rocking some incredible, like, bright-ass blue dress robes. It would have been like Dumb and Dumber. Like, he would have had...
Is bottle green like that green?
Well, no, because bottle green is supposed to be his eyes, but they made, like, Daniel Radcliffe, you know, famously couldn't wear the contacts, so he had blue eyes.
Famously sucks at contacts.
Yeah, just contact
stupid-ass 11-year-old.
Yeah, it just
get it
makes
together.
Me so mad. You're the chosen one. Put the fucking contacts in.
But that's what I'm saying, though. It's like, if since his eyes were blue, we could have gotten these crazy blue dress robes that would have just been so amazing.
That would have been lovely.
They would have. I always imagined them to be more of like, you know, Minerva McGonagall's robes where they're like that emerald green. That's kind of what I picture when I was reading the chapter. Was it picturing like a troll bogey green?
A booger green.
But I love how like Ron is so mad. He's like, what the fuck? He gets these like okay ones and I get these like shit ones.
Well, this would be a great opportunity for Harry to help a friend in need.
Right? Like he's got all this extra cash in the bank.
Yes.
Help a man out.
But Harry doesn't. Harry's like, sucks to suck.
Well, not only does he not do that, he gives himself an excuse. Because he's like, I would love to help out. I would split my money with them, but they'd never take it.
So I'm not even going to ask.
buy him the fucking dress robes and just give... I guarantee you he will wear them instead of the fucking maroon ones.
Yes.
Just buy them and give them to him. Just
well, here's the other thing is, I mean, Harry's 14 and, I mean, Molly Weasley just showed up with this today. I don't think he would know how to get dress robes. He would have to go through Molly to make that happen.
Oh, I'm sure they got mail order stuff, right?
He doesn't know how any of that stuff works. He's a fucking idiot. No, for real. He really has no idea how that works.
That's fair.
He only, like, if you see an ad in the Daily Prophet, which they were not even getting yet. They get that later in this book. Anyway, Mrs. Weasley basically is like, stop whining and go naked if you don't like these robes. And she tells Harry to get a picture because she could use a laugh.
I was going to say, too, like, I know you mentioned, like, the bitch with the writing. Like, she does do a good job of writing like a mom. And just the way that she's like, fine, go naked. See if I care. Like, that's such, like, a tired mom thing to say. Like, after all the kids she's had, she's like, fuck it, go naked then.
I just genuinely could not care less.
Yes. She's like, I'm going to fuck, go. Get expelled. It's fine.
Yeah.
I wish you would.
I know. And then he's, like, in his feelings, like, why is everything I own rubbish? And it's like, that's such like a great like teen angst thing to say while like stroking Pigwidgeon, just like Everything's trash.
Everything's trash.
Poor Ron. He desperately needs some simple plan in his life, and he's the right age for it. And
how could this happen to me? I've made my mistakes.
I'm just a kid, and life, it's a nightmare.
It's true. All this is true.
I know that it's not fair. Nobody knows, and I'm alone in the world. Just having more fun than me tonight.
All right, I'm calling
Because
it.
every night is the worst night ever.
Does anyone have anything else to say about this chapter?
Just that I am with Hermione wholeheartedly on SPEW, and I do not believe that Winky should be treated this way, which led to her substance abuse.
Right. I would say that I support House Elves. I don't know if I really support Hermione, because she just isn't going about it right. She's pretty annoying about it throughout this.
She tries.
But also that's kind of the narrative frames her in this obnoxious way. Mm-hmm. So it could have done her better.
You raised a good point, and we have to constantly remember these are 14-year-olds, and I think I can totally see Hermione being smart enough and ambitious enough to try something like this and go about it the wrong way. You see it a bunch with young, passionate people that want to try and do activism, and they end up not realizing that, you're a 14-year-old white kid. You want to help out, but, you're doing it the wrong way. You need to listen more and, learn so that you can actually help out.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what we're seeing is, Hermione is destined for greatness. She's going to do amazing things.
She's the brightest witch of our age.
Exactly. And, this is her, all passion, no skill. Right? And as she grows, the skill will overcome or rather it will come and make her as capable as she gets. But right now, this is just her this is awful. I got to do something. And it's yeah, but hold on.
Right.
It's a very adolescent way to approach though. So.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's the kid that's just get along. Why don't the countries just get along?
But why don't they just get along? Come on.
It's like me in traffic. I'm just go.
Just
then there wouldn't be traffic. if everyone just goes.
You're right. That is what would cure traffic.
As a solid 28-year-old woman, I still stand by that belief. Just go.
Just go.
Well, are y'all ready to move on to some plugs?
I think so.
Are you doing a joke, Andrew?
No, I always freeze.
Pensive.
Okay, well, I got it. I'll stall. I would love to start by plugging our Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can support us over on Patreon and gain access to our Discord community server. It's a really fun place to be. For the $5 a month tier, you can get access to our monthly bonus episodes. This month's bonus episode will be the audio from a live show we did, along with the RVA Book Lovers Festival back in May. That was with Mary Clay over on That's What I'm Talking About. What the fuck is wrong with me? Obviously, her podcast, which I've guessed it on 10 times, is called That's What I'm Talking About, because it's about the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm sorry, gang. I'm tired, yo. Sorting Lord of the Rings characters into Hogwarts houses. So you definitely want to give it a listen. Victoria, do you want to be found on the internet?
I can be found on the internet if you want to. My Instagram is That's What V Said, because that's what she said. And I do actually really want to plug one of my best friends. His name is Jason. He's a poet. He's written a book. He's a spoken word artist, and he also does really wonderful podcasts. And the one of his podcasts I want to plug is called InnerXViews. So it's interviews, but inner. Yeah. So it's Inner, INNER, and then X Views on Spotify, and he's really great. He talks to a lot of local artists, local people, just about themselves, kind of challenging them and what they can do to further themselves individually. And just want to plug that. He's a great guy.
Nice. Hell yeah. Andrew, what about you? What do you have to plug this week?
I might have plugged this before, but it would have been a few years ago, so I'm going to go ahead and plug it again. I'm a firm believer in one of the problems that we are all going through right now is we're taking in way too much news. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but we're taking in the wrong type of news. We're taking in the Rita Skeeter, try and get as many clicks as possible, right? And so one of the things that I really enjoy is when you get people who break down news stories and don't just go for like the top level. They really dig into it and kind of explain how every issue that we think of is way more complex than we give it rights to be, right? And particularly the group that does, it's called Some More News. It's on YouTube. You can find it. It's incredible. They really do a great job of blending in humor with very serious subjects and kind of digging deep. And it's nice because it's like once a week and it's about an hour long at most. And they kind of really dig into a subject so you can like take it in, understand the really like complicated bits that are, you know, parts of these things that are in everyday life or in the news or whatever. Right. But you don't have to like go to a site that's just like, you're going to die. Right. It's, you know, it's instead like, well, let's see. Are you actually like, let's actually dig into this. So I think that's what I'm going to go with this week.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I've been your host, Christina. You can follow me on Instagram at Christina the Con. You can follow me on Twitter at Christina Con. And you can follow me on TikTok at Sprouts Private Stash. And I recently read The Dead Zone by Stephen King. Pretty good book if you like King. But I found it to be interesting and diverting. So.
Oh, and can I plug like a PS thing?
Yeah.
So on my Instagram, like in this past year, I removed a lot of like negative stuff and started following like body positivity and like just better mental health stuff to look at. And one of my favorites to look at, they post every Sunday. It's called the Happier Broadcast. I don't know if you've heard of it. They just post like good news from around the world.
Aw.
So that's a really great one.
I love that.
Nice.
The Happier Broadcast.
We all need some of that good news.
Yes.
Well, Victoria, thank you so much for joining us today.
It was a blast.com. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it was an absolute pleasure. And Andrew, thank you as always for being my trusty co-pilot.
Always.
All right, gang, I gotta go finish reading Butterbeer for the Teenage Soul by Cyber Toaster before this book starts weeping. Bye.
Bye.
Woo.
We did it.
That was a very non-anything happening chapter.
The Restricted Section is thrilled to be a member of the Movie Night Crew podcast network, which features amazing other podcasts such as My Cabbages, an Avatar podcast. My Cabbages is an Avatar The Last Airbender podcast that was started by two lovable nerds during a global pandemic to stave off their inevitable existential crisis.
Coffee, tea, honor, cabbage. Long ago, the four elements lived in harmony. Then, shit went totally cray when the Avatar attacked. Only the Cabbage Man, merchant of fine cruciferous vegetables, could stand against his trolling. But when the world needed some dank veg, he vanished. 10 years have passed, and my partner and I have started a new podcast.
My Cabbages! An Avatar podcast.
A weekly show about Avatar The Last Airbender. Whether it's Sokka's new line of cologne.
Hey, look at you, sitting there on a seal. Well, now look back at me. I'm on an even bigger seal. Now look away.
D&D related antics.
You have to make an acrobatics check for that, and Aang just like unzips his pants and whips out his d20s. He's just like, I got this.
Or randomly breaking into song.
Go bending waterfall.
We'll stumble our way through the greatest show ever made, one episode at a time.
You can reach us at CabbageCast, which is our Twitter, or
subscribe wherever you catch pod.
Rotten cabbages? What kind of slum do you think this is?
The Restricted Section was created by me, Christina Kahn, based on the book series by J.K. Rowling. All music by Ryan Kahn. Logo by Michael Hardison. Support us on patreon.com/restricted section. For as little as $1 a month, you can gain access to our Discord community server, which is a really happy place to be. And there are other rewards as well, such as bonus episodes and Zoom happy hour hangouts. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Restricted Section Pod, on Twitter at Restricted Pod, and on Facebook at Restricted Section Pod. Also, feel free to shoot us an email at restrictedsectionpod@gmail.com to share your thoughts, feelings, complaints, conspiracy theories, or even lavish praise. I pulled up a file. I was looking really hard for like a really specific podcast file, and I saw an audio file that I'm not sure what's inside of it, but it just says Andrew - Wizard Country Music.
Oh, I remember that.
I don't remember it. I'm gonna listen to it later.
That's a gem. I remember that. I remember that. I don't remember what episode it's from, but I definitely remember.
Neither.
Yeah. Well, when you're going downtown and you fall in the ditch, you gotta get back up on that hippogriff. Go for a ride, land in the square. No one will even know that you're there. Then he goes into a great rest. The rest of the song's amazing.
That movie sucked. I kind of liked it.
Movie Night Crew Network.